Okay. Well, now that we know who's not right for a restaurant franchise, who is right for a restaurant business?
You know what? The ideal candidate to buy a restaurant business is the guy who's already done it. He's in your back of the house. He's in your front of the house. He's been running it and he knows the business. He loves the business and he's never been his own boss. And that whole idea of being your own boss is like, it just, we tell people we sell the American dream one restaurant at a time because it truly is. And I will never forget a brand I worked with a few years ago because we have a lot of relationships with a lot of franchisors and they, work with us on resales and say, here, help me find a new candidate. And I brought in a young man and he was like scraping pennies from his entire family. Like, how are we going to get all the money together to do this? Took a store that was underperforming, really not performing at all. It was underwater. Put it all together. We were, on a wing and a prayer with the landlord to try to get him approved. And the next year, he's Franchisee of the Year.
Wow.
Because he just, for him, it was his family business. And that's how you have to treat it, right? Your franchise, it's a franchise. And so, like, there's the guide rails, there's the menu, there's the trademark, but you still have to control your own village. You have to be out there talking to the Little League. You have to be present at the school board meetings. You have to be plugged into the school system. You have to be part of the community. And he was willing to do that. He had the greatest year-over-year sales increase in the system and was Franchisee of the Year. And those individuals who are doing it today, they're opening and closing the doors right now. If they can find the capital, they're ideal candidates, particularly for a resale.
That's interesting. So it's really because it is such a lifestyle business. That's why it's so important for them to actually have worked in the restaurant business so that they find that that's the kind of life that they want and they love. Mm-hmm. And then buying the franchise is more or less really a promotion, so to speak, than of owning your own business. But it's critical that they have that foundation of knowing what to expect because the restaurant business it's hard.
It is. And I think back on some of the folks, their restaurants that I've sold. And I know a gentleman now, I sold his restaurant 10 years ago. He was a numbers guy and he's a chief financial officer now. We're still connected on LinkedIn and we chat but he decided he was going to get into the sandwich shop business. And, his P&Ls were fabulous in terms of how they were executed, but they were terrible in terms of how he was managing the actual business, right? And so you just got to know what your strengths are and then lean into that. And, don't get excited about a concept. Don't fall in love with the food. If you love the food, back somebody up in the business or go, buy gift cards and give them to your whole family and go eat out there. You don't have to buy the franchise to support it, right?
Right. Go eat there. You don't have to buy yourself a job because you like their food.
Exactly.
That's not a good reason to own a business.
No,
not at all. Okay, so what about somebody who is, you shared somebody who was strictly a numbers person. What do you find in terms of kind of the split between people who are strictly financial people that are buying this? They're buying a restaurant from you because of the economics versus buying it because it's a lifestyle of them being their own boss. How would you say that split?
Say it's probably about 50-50, but we're really also talking about two different business models being offered because on the one hand, we might be offering a turnaround opportunity. That's it literally, you're buying the assets of the business, the brand name, access to the training, the lease, but it's underwater today and it needs a turnaround specialist. And that person needs to be someone who has that deep bench experience in the industry. But we're also very profitable businesses where there's already leadership in place. They're not going to have to be hands-on. As long as that person is still engaged in the business, they can easily acquire, and that's where they'll do roll-ups of multiple units, 4 and 5 and 6 units. And I've helped some people in the industry acquire 10 or 11 stores. And then that becomes kind of a portfolio balancing act, right? So then they'll get their 10 or 11 new ones, put them into a portfolio with 25, and then they're like, okay, want to chop the bottom performing. Robin, sell this one, And when we
Right.
carve that out, it makes sense to that second guy, right? The guy with experience, because it'll be more profitable without all that layered in expense, G&A expense. And then I find this guy something more profitable, and that just raises the value of his entire portfolio.
Okay, so we have the transfers for the franchise owner that is getting out because maybe things weren't going well. What about this we're hearing all about the greatest transfer of generational wealth that we're now underway. Are you starting to
The
see more and more people
silver,
retiring now? What's going on?
yeah, the silver tsunami, right?
Yeah, is it here yet?
It's here. It's here, and it's been here for a few years, because for baby boomers, there are 10,000 baby boomers every single day turning 65 from now until 2030. So you think about that, and those baby boomers have this massive amount of wealth. And what we see, there's so much going on with these generations. It's so interesting. The baby boomers gave birth to the millennials, right? And the
Right.
millennials are amazing. They're the most highly educated cohort in our society ever. But that means they don't want mom and dad's story.
Right. They
Right.
don't want.
They have no interest. So it's not going to transfer to them. Now, on the younger side of those baby boomers, then they may have some Gen Z or Gen Y folks out there. They also don't want the store, because that old legacy, fill in the blank, fast casual business that's, burning peanut oil and delivering lots of money to the back line.
Right.
They want the new cool concept that's planting a tree in Africa every time they sell a smoothie, right? So they don't want to do. And so mom and dad are host. They have to come to us, and we have to find a new person for them, because they're not transferring to family members the way they might have even a generation ago.
Right. All right. So are us Gen Xers buying these franchises that maybe you're saying I want a new chapter in my life to still own a business? Is that who's still buying?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And, COVID displaced so many people. There were so many people and this disruption's continuing, right? It's still not done, because now, okay, we went through 2020, took people out of their normal roles. Some of them needed to buy, or retirees stayed, that people who should have retired and would have been selling their businesses back then held on to them, right? So they didn't transfer. So now, fast forward 3 or 4 years later, we finally have some businesses, a large collection of businesses, and it sounds like maybe even the government going forward saying work from home is over, come back to the office.
Yeah.
And when it happens, we're going to have more of these Gen Xers drop out and say, okay, what's my new life? And my new life is going to be buying a business.
It's certainly an exciting time to be in your business.
It is. It's been exciting from day one. When you are an entrepreneur, like for me, I can't imagine, but people say, well, have you thought of retirement? This is like, if you love business, and if you love being a franchisor, and you love seeing people go into business for themselves, like, this is a great thing you can do forever.
Yeah, for sure. Tell us about your experience with the IFA. So I understand you're on the IFA board now. You've been on the board previously. What's that all like?
So for 8 years, I served on the Women's Franchise Committee, and ultimately became the chair of the Women's Franchise Committee. And when I gave up that responsibility, that was my first year on the IFA board. And then I was permitted to move on into a permanent seat, and then also asked simultaneously to come on as the vice chair of the Franchisor Forum. And the Franchisor Forum is wonderful. It's really not talked about a lot, but it's this element. We have the Franchisee Forum, the Franchisor Forum, and the Supplier Forum, which are really the 3 legs of the stool for franchising. And so the Franchisor Forum almost serves as this ad hoc advisory board to the board of directors to say, these are things that are on the franchisor's minds. These are the things we should be talking about. And so in February, I'll become the chair of the Franchisor Forum, the IFA. But,
Congrats.
Well, thank you. But the time and energy and passion I have given to the IFA, it has given back to me tenfold, right? Just the people that you meet and the connections. And I encourage anyone in this industry, like the first thing we did the first year, our FDD was hot off the press. We picked it up from our attorney at our first IFA meeting in 2012. And I mean, the role of the IFA is to promote, protect, and enhance franchise. And they truly do that. And the advocacy that's been shown by that organization over even the past 5 years.
Yeah.
You have to join, and you need to get involved to support the industry.
I couldn't imagine being a franchisor and not being a member of the IFA. And it's unnecessary to go at it alone.
Right.
It's inexpensive. The value you get and the connections you make, you couldn't pay for that. There's not enough money in the world that you could do that on your own. Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.